Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. My name is Diego, this is Marta, and today together we're going to be talking about 5 things that I wish I knew before I started breeding reptiles as a hobby or as a business. The first thing that I wish I knew before I started breeding reptiles is that your favorite project might not be the one that makes you the most money. So you need to be comfortable with the idea that if you want to breed crested geckos for a living, you might not be making as much money as you want to from them, and you might have to use other projects in order to make that money that a business needs. For example, Carebugs does not make nearly as much money from the crested geckos as it does from the millipedes or the frogs. Now, although Carebugs is like 80% crested geckos, the main source of money is not coming from them. I know this is sad. It might be also because Carebugs is just getting started with crested geckos as of now. Crested geckos and Carebugs have only been breeding for around 1 year. So essentially, you're going to need to diversify. It might be diversifying in project. So if you want to specialize on, for example, XXX crested geckos, you might need to go for a different route as well. You might need to go for quad stripes, you might need to go for sables, you might need to go for xanthics, you might need to go for red phantoms or other projects that, in my opinion, have a bigger demand. Now, it is true that XXX have already a pretty high demand, but it's just an example. So your favorite project might not be the one that will make you the most money. So be open and be comfortable with the idea of you not only specializing on one project. Now, you could make it work, but you're going to need a lot of brand recognition, a lot of marketing, and you're going to need people to know what you have and that they can pretty much only get it from you. So unless you're Brian with the xanthics, where he made a ton of money from the xanthics because he was the only one selling xanthics, you're going to have to diversify and get more animals that support that main project of yours. The second thing that I wish I knew before I started breeding reptiles is to not take advice from just everyone. There's some people that have a say, and there's some people that don't really have a say in what you do. For example, you buy a crested gecko. The person that sold you that crested gecko has no say in what you should do with that animal. You, as a buyer, have every single right to do whatever you want with the animal. Now, although advice might be good, and maybe you're just getting started with breeding, so advice is always taken in. But if the breeder tells you to pair it to a really expensive male that you don't have the resources to buy, you don't have to do that. You can start a season by pairing that female or male to a different animal, get some offspring, sell those, and maybe if you want to, you can buy that male or female that the breeder told you to and recommended you to buy and make those kids that the seller told you to make. Now, this is just an example, and unfortunately, a lot of people want to really be invested in your projects after they sell a gecko to you. I do understand that. I really want to be involved with the crested geckos that I sell. I want to make sure that they're healthy and they're being used for good projects. However, I still have no say on what other crested gecko breeders have to do with my reptiles. It's their choice as a buyer, and they can keep it as a pet, they can breed it to whatever they want, and I really have no say as to what they have to do. Another thing is some people think that they know everything, especially people that have a name or some kind of recognition. I, for example, know that I'm never going to know every single thing crested gecko related. There's a lot of genes that will be discovered in the future that we just don't know yet. There's a lot of things that will be studied and explored more in the future. So there's no way that we can know every single thing about crested geckos, ball pythons, or whatever it is that you breed or are interested in. So people don't know the market. People have no say in what you should sell or keep. You, as a breeder, are the only one who has that say, and you are the only one that has the right to decide what you're gonna do with the offspring that you produce. Let's say that you are into something that does not have a high demand in crested geckos, for example, pattern Dalmatians. No one, literally no one, has the say to tell you that you cannot breed pattern Dalmatians. Some people actually like them. Some people want to breed for them, and some people want that specific look. So don't trust everything that people say. In my opinion, those are one of the best sellers because they make good pets. They usually sell for cheap, so you can buy them for cheap and make cheap babies. Now, if you have a really specific and focused project, I am sure that you can create a really awesome line of pattern Dalmatians and make them expensive because you have put the work and years into that line. As I was starting, a lot of people have told me, oh yeah, don't breed for those are not gonna sell, and I already did the pairing for some of those, and I was like scared, really scared, like, oh my god, I have a ton of babies that I'm not gonna be able to sell. Eventually, they sell well. Crested geckos are not really that hard to sell. You need to know people, you need to put your name out there, go to expos, and they will sell eventually. So yeah, don't trust every single person. Not everyone knows it all. I don't know it all. A ton of the big breeders don't know it all. A lot of the people that have been doing it for 20 years still don't know it all. So don't trust everyone. It is good to ask different people, get their opinions, and then based on your opinions, you can form somewhat of an educated opinion and maybe educate yourself, or also have an opinion with some kind of background that gives you a more structured opinion. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does, but just don't trust every single person and do some research. This kind of leads me to the thing number 3 that I wish I knew before I started breeding reptiles, and it is to get informed overall. You need to be informed of the health, the care, the genetics, and a lot of other things. You need to get informed on the sales channels. You're not only going to sell through your morph market, you might need to build a website, you might need to go to shows, you might need to start doing auctions on some apps like Palm Street or Morph Market. So there's really a lot of options of ways in which you can make money breeding reptiles, and you cannot be just focused on one. You need to diversify, just kind of like what I said on my tip number 1. But not only on the species, but you need to also diversify on your sales channels, which are where you're going to be essentially making money with your reptile breeding business. The thing number 4 that I wish I knew before I started breeding reptiles is that this is kind of a political hobby. It reminds me a lot of the research world where scientists are constantly fighting on who takes credit for what. I'm a microbiology student and I have been in 2 undergraduate labs, and I have heard a lot of stories of different undergraduate labs in my same college where it's all the same. It's everyone is competing for the name and everyone's competing just for a publication. They want to be the first people to publish a study. And unfortunately, this is the same thing in the crested gecko community. Everyone wants to be the first one to discover a morph, to create a line, and to name things. People fight over who named what, people fight over who created what or who discovered what. But the truth is, we're not creating things here, we're discovering things. We need to give the credit to the crested geckos. We need to treat these more as a community, like I said on my previous video. If we have no sense of community, there is no hobby, and if there's no hobby, there's no market, and there's no fun. We need to treat this as a community. So we can't be arguing over who created what or who discovered what or all those silly things. Like David said, guys chill, it's just geckos. So don't get too involved in all the controversial things. A lot of people in this hobby have completely extreme opinions and personalities, so don't fall in the cycle of pointing out your political views, your opinions, if they're controversial. Just be you, treat this as a hobby, separate it from your personal life, and just be chill. Be chill. It's really important to just be chill. Now, I also say this because a lot of people with thousands of followers are publicly posting their really controversial opinions or doing things that probably should not be done under a business name, because you're going to damage your image. And if you damage your image, you sell no geckos. And if you sell no geckos, then you're going to have a ton of animals that don't have homes. It's obviously an extreme case. I think that people can recover from a really bad image, but it's definitely hard, and just there's really no need to damage your image just because you feel like you need to say something. Just leave aside your controversial topics and your political views and you will probably be fine. Also, don't claim that you're the owner of something that you're clearly not the owner of. A lot of people have been naming the same genes. They have created that gene, or that gene has popped up in their collection out of nowhere. And I don't know, everyone just wants to be the owner of every single gene, especially when something's new. It's really hard to track it and know who it came from first. So just don't be that guy. Don't try to take the credit from someone else, because in the end, the credit is just from the crested geckos. They are the ones producing the awesome animals that we see every single day. And finally, the thing number 5 that I wish I knew before I started breeding reptiles is that it gets really tedious really fast. You're going to have to clean a lot more than you think. You're not going to be designing geckos all day. You're not going to be handling geckos all day. But the thing that you're most likely going to do every single day or week is cleaning cages, feeding geckos, misting geckos, checking on them, handling just routinely, taking some pictures. So there's a lot of skills that you need to learn. And if you are not comfortable with those skills, it's going to get really tedious, really fast, and you're not going to enjoy it. So you need to make sure that you're comfortable with learning these things, rather than just thinking that it's all just funsies and breeding geckos and that's it. Because there's really a lot of things that come into play for you to become a successful reptile breeder. I personally have had to learn how to take pictures, edit them in Lightroom to correct the brightness and all those things, edit videos, record videos, get better at lighting. I mean, you can look at my first video, it looked nothing like this. It was honestly really bad. So this is much better and it makes me happy, and I think that it makes you guys a little bit happier too. I have a better microphone, I've learned how to edit audio. Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. I'm cleaning cages every single week and feeding them crickets and mealworms by hand because my enclosures have like a really big holes for the ventilation, so I just hand feed them. I know you don't have to do this. I can probably make a really cheap solution and easy and just dump crickets in there, but I don't know. I like it because that way I get to see the geckos, I get to take pictures, I get to see how they develop, know their personalities, and get them used to me. So overall, it's gonna get really tedious at some point. You cannot go from 5 geckos to 100 overnight, and you need to get used to it. You need to be able to optimize things, and you need to be able to prioritize things that you might not be comfortable prioritizing. Health is always going to be the number one factor that should come into play, but the truth is that most reptiles do not need a glass enclosure. If you really like bioactives, I am sorry, but you're going to have to spend a lot of money. You're going to use a lot of room just to have as many geckos as I have. You might need 3 rooms of this in order to have as many geckos as I have, because I have mines in tubs and shoe boxes, and it sounds bad, but honestly I have done experiments with this big enclosure that you see here. That is a 16 by 16 by 32 or something like that, weird measurements. And geckos really do not act any differently in any of these conditions. They do the same gecko behaviors, they even eat better in tubs. And I know that's a completely different video, tubs versus glass enclosures. I know it's a whole different video, but you're going to have to prioritize things that you might not be comfortable prioritizing. So you need to know that it's going to get really tedious really fast. And with that being said, that is all I have for today. I hope this video was useful, and if it was, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.